Hi everyone, it's Eddie here at Eddie Makes Art, and I have a great new stencil today that I want to show you and make some prints with. And this is from my fellow designer, colleague, and friend, Christy Hartman. This is her newest design. It's called Black-Eyed Susan Flowers, which are amazing flowers, one of my favorite flowers out there. And she made this amazing stencil that is just so beautiful. So I want to make some prints with it today, and the reason is because I want to, and I've shown this book before. I've got this recently in some Happy Mail from my friend Liz Bent, and so she put together this really cool large journal with stitch pages, you know, these large, vast pages. So, you know, it's going to be an art journal, but I want to give it my own flavor and use some of these prints that we make today to do the covers, both inside and outside. And then, yeah, so I'm just doing the prints today. I'm not decorating anything in the book, but I just want to get the prints done today and then dedicate another video to starting to decorate my newest art journal. So, all right, let me set that aside. And again, this is Black-Eyed Susan Flowers. It's a stencil, comes in a 9x12 and I believe 8x10 design. And they're from PM Artist Studio. And if you're not familiar with PM Artist Studio, I am one of the designers for them. They are a family business based out of Texas, and they live stream 3 times a week, actually 4 times a week, I apologize, Sundays and Mondays, Tuesdays and Thursdays at 10 a.m., Sundays, Mondays, Tuesdays, 3 p.m., and those are Central U.S. times, and they make art basically, and they do great stuff. They do a lot of experiments. They're very funny, and they're very real, and they're very caring and loving, and they love on everyone. They love to love, and they are Patricia and Mariah, mother-daughter duo. That's a tough one to say. But they are fabulous. They do stencils, they make foam stamps and other arty tools. So, you know, check out their website, pmartiststudio.com. And when you place an order, let them know I sent you, because they like to know that sort of stuff. But yeah, they have all kinds of great stuff. They got a point system on their website, which is great. You get rewarded for your purchases. You get rewarded on your birthday. So lots of great stuff. So check them out. They also run a Facebook private group called Makers of Mixed Media Art and Artists, which is where me and my friends hang out, and we share our work and our ideas and our, you know, ask questions, all sorts of good stuff. So yeah, check us out over there. All the links for of what I'm talking about right now are always going to be in the description box of these videos. So check out the description box, expand it, and there's all kinds of info in there. So let's get started, and I want to start with this phthalo blue. So what I want to do is, I want to do an outline of blue. So basically, I'm going to lay down the blue on the gel plate. This is one of my 12x14 gel plates. It was clean. I wanted to use it today. I may use another one as well. You know, while one dries, we can work on the other. So I'm just laying out a coat of the blue paint, and the stencil will go on it. These stencils, if you're not familiar with them, they're made from Yupo. It's a 74-pound synthetic sheet, so basically plastic. It's a polypropylene. And they're great. They make great stencils. So let me see here. Hopefully, yeah, it should be enough for the border here. And I have some Carnival wet strength tissue. Why did I do that? Okay. Take your time, Eddie. And I'm just gonna pull the color through that. Now, here's where A tip comes in handy. When you're pulling paint through the tissue, use paper towel. First of all, it's smoother, helps you to get into those bits and pieces of the openings of the stencil. Also, it avoids your fingers, your hands from getting super painty. And this is a super painty, staining paint, this particular shade of blue. So, yeah, let's see. So go through here. When you first start using a Yupo stencil, the brand new stencil, things will stick to it if you're not using it appropriately. So let's say I had put down just a regular piece of copy paper on top of this and we're to pick up the paint through the stencil as I'm doing with the tissue. There's a good possibility that that will stick if I leave it on too long. That's just the nature because of the stickiness of the paint. And then, you know, when you put it with the Yupo, and if the paint dries too quickly, it'll attach to the stencil. So I like to use tissue when I'm first starting to put paint on the stencil, or you can use deli paper. You can use the paper you use when you're making a pattern making paper, that type of tissue. You can use that as well. So here we have our first beautiful print. Look at that. That's gorgeous. Let me set that aside and then clean up with this larger piece here. Just get anything extra around the edges that I can. And if you're interested in Carnival wet strength tissue, it's great to have. It's an investment for sure, but it's definitely in my top 5 things to have, must-haves for gel printing. There's a link in the description box for this tissue, so check that out. All right, I want to let this dry, and then I'll come back and pick it up with a different color. Now, if I was a brave man, I could lay this down on some paper and try and get some of that paint off. But the blues dry quickly. Now, the paper I have to do a pickup with, my brayer offs here, these are encyclopedia pages that Liz sent me. Now, I can try this real quick and see if I get anything, but I don't want to leave it on longer than that because it can stick. But it's not much on there. Got a little bit off. Maybe if I do a little section at a time, just gently. But really, you want to be careful because if the paper sticks, it doesn't ruin your stencil, but it interrupts your flow because you have to go and soak your stencil and get the paper off. And you'll save your stencil. The stencil will be fine, but you might, you'll ruin the flow of your groove, of your arting groove. So as I'm talking, this is drying pretty quickly. It's a warm day here and it's dry, so I'm expecting some of these paints to dry a lot quicker than normal. And that's another thing when you gel print, is keep in mind is your weather, the weather around you. If it's more humid, your paints are going to take longer to dry. If it's more dry out, your paints are going to dry a lot quicker. Certain paints, certain colors dry faster. And that's why it's important to experiment with the paints you do have. It doesn't matter how expensive they are. Experiment with the paints that you do have. And you will learn quickly how each one works so that when you are using them, you can anticipate issues that may arise. So for example, if I'm using this blue and I know, like today, it's warm out, I got to work a lot quicker because it's going to dry up faster on me. So those are things you want to kind of keep in mind, but it comes with practice and just doing it over and over. It doesn't, you can keep a diary. I don't, it's easier for me just to think about it and remember it. Some people, you can write like a little diary every, when you do a gel printing session. That might be a good idea for you. All right, I'm gonna get this out of the way. Beautiful stencil. So don't ruin that. That's how I identify my stencils and keep track of them. And so let's think about a color to come in here and pick this up. And so we're using this book to cover. And I want to kind of like honor some of the colors on here. So we'd have some greens. There's some yellows in here. There's a little like sort of brownish red. There's this darker beige tones. So maybe if we do, I don't know. Now I saw Patricia do a live on her live stream yesterday on PMR Studio. She pulled a blueprint that was actually the opposite of this color. Not the opposite, but it was much lighter. It was like a light blue. And then she picked it up with an ultramarine blue. I can do the reverse of that with a light blue paint to pick it up. And I'm gonna do it on tissue paper, and that's gonna have to dry. So I'm thinking maybe because I have this light blue that I can come in and do a pickup on this print. I'm gonna take a look here and see what I have in my arsenal. I have some paints over here to my left, like the smaller bottles and stuff. So also I have this. This is the teal and blue. This is teal, rather, from Golden Fluid Acrylic. I'm gonna use this. Now, this is another situation we wanna keep in mind, your paint drying times. The fluid acrylics tend to dry faster, so I wanna be aware of that. Get the tissue ready, make sure I got the right one. Yes, that will fit great. Okay, so we'll get this down and we'll have our first print. Something's going on in here. The paint's not coming out like it should, but I'll investigate that later. There's probably a big paint blob in there that's like chunky and needs to come out. All right, this should be enough. Okay, let's go ahead and put that tissue down. Did I just rub on that? I don't know what I did. Weird. All right, okay. Try and smooth out some of these wrinkles, which I don't mind, but I do my best to smooth them out. Put a little sheet on top. Let's get that extra paint. All right, I'm gonna get this off the brayer. And these pages I will use in the book as well as I decorate it. Smooth this out, and then I'm going to let it dry. And I will come back once this is dry. All right, that's continuing to dry, that other print. Pulled up my 9x12 and I forgot to clean it from my last video, but here we go. We're going to go ahead and we're going to get on it. So, oh, here's my stencil. That's what I was looking for. I'm going to lay my stencil down on here. Let's see, I'm thinking. What if we did an ombre, just 3 colors that coordinate and all right, here's what I'm gonna do. Let's pick out 3 colors. Go. I like this emerald. This is Emerald Flash. Should we use that? With that, I have a, where's my green? I have a Jenkins green here somewhere. No. Here we are. Jenkins green. And then let's do do nickel azo yellow. So I'm gonna do the metallic in the middle, the color shift in the middle, and then these two here. And this is something that Patricia stresses over at PMR Studio. She's the artist over there as far as gel printing. Put your paint, your 3 paints, put 2 on one end, 3 on the 1 on the other, and then the third one, put the opposite on the opposite end here, right? So that when you do this, things will flow better. Now, the trick is, obviously, you want 3 stripes of colors that blend into each other well. And just take your time, and as you go over, just keep an eye out of where things are going. Okay. That looks pretty good. Look at that. That's gonna be cool. I'm gonna take my stencil off. Move this for a moment. Let me take my stencil off, and I'm gonna do a little cleanup work on here. All right, so this is one of those times where I have to move quickly. So, stencil lift, that's gonna dry. And let me see if I can get some color off of here without the paper sticking. So on the side with less paint, I'm using the tissue because the tissue I know is not really gonna stick, but it'll pull a nice, look at that print. We got off the back, that's a nice print there. And then from here, you can see another nice print. So we're already 3 prints into this, and we haven't really pulled a print yet, like off the plate. So that's what I love about gel printing is if you're thoughtful enough during the process, you'll get some really cool papers along the way. All right, again, this has to dry. Let's see how, this really doesn't have much left on it. A little bit at the top there. Okay, so this, it's got all that fun stuff going on in the foreground. With some gold flake left over on there. Obviously the black paint in the circles, and then there's some like reds. But that's going to, I think, add to that print. That'll be cool. Again, let's let this dry. All right, the other large plate that I've neglected because I actually haven't pulled it out in a while. So I'm not doing a ton of gel printing, and I don't have a lot of space to keep them all out. No worries. Let's get this back down on the plate. And maybe we'll do a couple of prints. Like, you know, when I do a long haul, I leave the stencil down and do a couple of layers of paint and a couple of prints. So that's what I'm gonna do here. I'm gonna go ahead and do a couple of prints while I leave the stencil down on the paper. So let's get our papers back to where they belong. Let's do a layer of, here, this is Prussian blue. Let's do a print with this. And this is a nice paint. Dark. That'll give us an outline. So when we do finally pull the stencil up, there'll be an outline on there that we can pull as a print. Excuse me. I just find using the darker paint at the beginning helps to define that outline early on. For the first print, I want to pull on some of this, but I got to go fast. This is the encyclopedia paper. I don't want to leave it down too long because it's a thin paper. I don't want it to stick on me. Ooh, look at that. Beautiful. All right, and then I'll get the rest with, use this one here. Okay, if they don't line up, you get cool effects that way. Some of this extra paint off so that we don't have trouble later on. All right, and you see these white patches on the stencil? That's supposed to happen. That is basically, ooh, I ripped that. That's my fault. That's not you. Okay. It gives back. So as you're adding paint to the UPO and then pulling it off with paper, it'll give back depending on the types of paint that you use. So sometimes these thinner fluid paints will pull off more from the stencil than other paints. But yeah, we get a cool print going on there. All right, let's add another color to this. Keeping it in the color vibe of this journal that I have. Let's try some of this. I like this. Is a new one I have. It's a buttercup. It's called Buttercup. It's folk art. Here you are. Oh, I never cleaned my brayer off. Whoop. Make sure I do that well. I mean, this paint, it's going to turn green anyway, but you know what I'll do? Let me use this brayer I haven't used yet, so it's less chance of turning green. But with the paint that's on the stencil already, it's going to start to mix, so I'm not worried about that. You get some cool effects that way. I'll have to do a video of all the sheets like this that I use to clean up all the edges and things. I have a collection of, because they turn into some really beautiful papers. And I save them and use them in other things. Okay. See, look at how much this stencil is giving back. Like, it's doing so much for us. All we did was put down a layer of paint, and look at that gorgeous print that we got. Beautiful. Okay. All right, there's still some paint left on there. I'm gonna go ahead and use that to my advantage and add some paints here. Let's do some gold. Where is this gold here? This is a good one. This is the Lucas Krill gold. It's nice to do some pulls with metallic. Oops. Get that grungy bit off there so it doesn't get into my paint. This one I'm going to do on the Hammermill color copy paper. I have to be careful not to leave this down too long because paper to paint can be tricky with your timing. So let me do this. Wonderful. Another cool print. Get that. And then let's get this next one with this print here that we pulled. We'll add some shimmer to that. Get some of this extra here. So I'm basically trying to stay within the same, little color family and do some prints that I can use to decorate the art journal. And so far, I'm sticking. Got another layer on here. That looks fantastic. Loving this so far. Okay, so what do we have under here? Let's do one more pull and then look at that. That's what we have as an outline from the couple of layers, just a couple of layers we've done just now. It's giving us that. So that's a plus. And then we're gonna, actually, I'm gonna do this fern. That's what I'm gonna do, the fern. A nice layer of that on there. This is a wonderful color to have in the collection. Oh, come on. There we go. I forget these pages. These pages are thin. Encyclopedia pages, but they're great rare off sheets. And this one, I'm gonna try and pull some white paper here. That's okay. Got a lot on there, but that's okay. This is a great base to play with. All right, I'm going to pick up the rest with tissue. Where's my blue one? There it is. This could use some of this green. This one should be interesting now with the added layer of the green. Look at that, it's got bits of the gold in there too. How awesome is that print? All right, that one needs to be left alone for a bit. Okay. Good. Here's the gold one. Okay, I think at this point I'm gonna lift this stencil off and then let the underneath dry so that I can come back in and pull that with something. All right. And right here. There we go. What we did on the 9x12 plate. This is still wet, believe it or not. So this still needs to dry. Now, the sides, because they're the fluid acrylics, could be dry. They're probably dry, yeah, mostly dry. But this was just a regular acrylic, so that's going to take a little bit longer to dry. And then our other print, it's the one we did on the tissue. This should be ready to go. All right, so just go along the edges and push them down a little bit just to help it release so we don't get any surprise rips or tears, although you might. Don't let that stop you. Yeah, good choice. See, yeah, that was me. Look at that. That's spectacular. I think it's upside down. Oh, wow. That turned out awesome. Very nice. Let's add some paint to this. We're gonna need something transparent. I'm gonna use some of this transparent red iron oxide. But I just want to color up this section here, so like that. So let me get my small brayer. For this, I need a little spatula. And it's an open paint. It'll take longer to dry, but I'm okay with that. And the only reason I have this paint is I was at the art store one day shopping around. And you know how they have those bargain bins towards the, the back end of the store? Well, I took a little peep and they had a bunch of paints. And, thinking back, I probably should have gotten more. But they had this, which is normally, at least $15 for the jar. It was on sale for $4.99. It was a manager special. It was a full jar. There was no reason that I could find. I picked it up, and it's been a wonderful, wonderful paint to have. So, like I said, I just want to do a strip of color on that one end. And I don't mind picking up any of this blue stuff that was down there already. That will add to the print. So we want to color this side right here. See how far there. And just playing around here. This is nothing. None of this is like a planned mission or anything. It's just kind of, go with the flow, which is how I like to work. So you see here, we've got one end here done. I like how that looks. Okay, nice. So then maybe do something else over here. I'm gonna pick up the rest of that because there's still paint on there that'll come up. Because like I said, it's open, meaning that's a brand specific term for golden acrylic paints. It's the term open. It means that it has an extender added to it, so the paint is going to stay wetter longer, which comes in handy when you're doing things where you need a little extra time. You need a little extra time for whatever reason, and that allows you to work better and not stress about something drying as fast. Now you can extend the drying time of your paints by adding what's called an extender or a retarder, and you've seen me use this before. This is the retarder by Blick. Works great. I use it, usually it's about 4 parts paint to 1 part of the extender, depending on how long I need it to stay open for. So yeah, you know, those are different options you have of making your paint or having a paint that doesn't dry as quickly. All right, so for this next color, let's get into the yellow here. Let's do some yellow. Isn't that enough? Should be enough here. Center part. Sorry for the shaking. It's not perfect, but look at the selling going on when the paint kind of blooms out. I love that. I need something here. Oh, duh, I have my green gold. Another fluid acrylic, some of that. Shaky, shaky, wakey, wakey. There we go. Should be far enough over. I'm gonna pull out some of this green. Just here. Add some extra color to that. Extra color on there. Let's see. Awesome. So that's how you do an ombre without putting all 3 colors on the plate. Just do a strip at a time. I like that. That fluid paint really leaves a beautiful quality behind. It's like a smooth, lustrous feeling. And then you get the texture of that, the first layer of the flowers, you know, when you got off the stencil. All right, so there. We have this layer on the large plate should dry. This is dry, so let's take a look here. So hopefully you can see that. And I want to pick it up with a tissue. Let's think about a color here. Let's do that. I'm gonna get my small plate, which has paint on it already. Now look at that. Well, I'm gonna mix up some paint on here. So I don't want to do this on the plate because otherwise I'll get splotches. So let's do some copper and some of this terracotta. And a spatula. Here we go. I want to use the metallic for, obviously, the shiny, but I like the terracotta because this paint is a nice pull paint, and I think it'll go nicely. If we take a look here at the back cover, on the inside, it's got a lot of these same colors, so I think that'll work with that nicely. I'm going to do a little bit more copper. Let's see how this goes. Uh-oh, see, look at that. A little gremlin from the paint. I try to get them when I open it, but sometimes I miss it. Okay. So now that I've mixed it, I shouldn't get a like shiny slick marks, or just, you know, little marks across the print that look off. You know, sometimes experiment with that. Try that, mixing, you know, put metallic down and then a regular paint and spray it out. And sometimes you get like these weird smears when you try to mix it on the plate. Slightly larger piece of tissue. And we'll start here. Ooh, nice and smooth. Okay. Get the big tissue down. That way I can smooth the whole thing without getting my hands covered in paint from the edges. Another one that's got to dry. So I'm going to let this dry, and then the other one has to finish drying, and then I'll come back and we can continue. All right, so this is dry, and I've decided that's the wrong paint. Okay, I'm just looking at it and going, okay, that's the wrong one. Don't pick that one. So that's not what you wanted. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to do another ombre, but this time I'm going to do gold, Jenkins, green, and then gold again. Because the metallic on the bottom layer is only in the middle, so I'm going to do it, you know, flip it and just do the Jenkins in the middle. But I didn't want to green out the yellow, so I decided to go with the gold. All right, so here's what we'll do. We're gonna get gold here, here, and then some Jenkins in the middle. And this should turn out to be a pretty awesome print. Let me get my tissue paper ready, laid down. All right, ready to go. Here we go. All right. And I should have put that there, but you know what? I'm okay with that. And I'm gently moving it side to side. Just make sure you get the plate covered. And that plate looks generously covered. So when I drop my paper down, or better yet, gently place it. A little crooked, but I'm not worried about that. Or a little cleanup up here, so I missed that edge. And then just make sure everything's nicely pressed down. And so this definitely needs a good amount of time to dry to make sure all those layers pull up. And this is going to be a yummy, yummy print. Yeah, that's going to be a great print. And I got some awesome brayer offs today. This print here, but what I want to do is I want to get the outline of the stencil maybe on here. So let's try it. Let's do that. Where and what color do we want? Let's use a, what about the cerulean blue? There is my cerulean blue. Here it is. It's on the place where I don't normally keep it. This is Winsor Newton Galleria, Winsor Newton Galleria cerulean blue hue. Get that open there. Gonna layer that down. I'll give myself enough paint to make sure I have a nice base coat underneath. Some on here, like a stripe there. Do some on here. So stencil down, and remember we're going to pull the outline onto this print here. So we're going to pull the paint through the stencil here. That'll be a nice print to play with. Some of these prints I won't finish completely today. But they are prints that you can, you know, there's certainly prints that you can add to later. And that's what I intend to do. Beautiful color. Okay. Now let me get this. Where's my big one here? See if I can get any more from in the middle here. Not much, huh? So, pick this up, I can lay you down. I'll show you, get a nice ghost print off of here. This way, try and get some paint off the edges as well. And when these tissues, when the paint builds up enough, it's not going to take on any more paint. So, you know, if you're wondering why isn't this tissue working well, if you got too many layers of paint, it's not going to pull up paint as easily. But, you know, it does take a few layers. So don't be afraid. Beautiful. That's exactly what I wanted. So we got a beautiful print there. It's got some texture to it because that first layer gave it some texture. Beautiful outline there. Nice. I'm patting myself on the back in my head because I'm like, you stuck to the color palette. Good job, Eddie. I usually venture off and do, you know, other crazy stuff. All right, so we have that. That's a ghost print for later. Let's see if we can get anything off this stencil here. I doubt it. Yeah, not really anything. It's pretty much dry. All right, yeah, like I said, it's a warm day here, so it's dry, and it's dry, so it's gonna, paint is gonna dry up quickly on this. All right, let's see how we're doing with this one. I think we can pull this print here. And if we can't, like, then we'll wait. But let's give it a go. Well, I think it's gonna work. Let me just get into these edges though. So we see I ripped it here. I pushed too hard. I'm so bad. All right. Oh, this is gonna be so cool. Whoa, look at that beauty. That's a beauty. And look how well it's gonna go with that back page there. Look at that. That's perfect. The colors are just spot on. Right. Let's get you into a safe place. All right, I think this one's dry. Let's give this a nice edge rub here. Make sure everything comes up nicely. All right, so fingers crossed. This is probably the grungiest and the most beautifulest one of all. Look at that. That is just so cool. I really, really like it. It's so nice and smooth. Very, very cool. All right, so I think that's it. Do I have anything on plate? I don't. So let me move this and take a look at the prints I did today. Just pulled that one. This was a pull through from the stencils. This was a stencil cleanup. It's beautiful. Sprayer off. We clean the stencil off on that too. And here's a cleanup tissue. What do we have here? This one, this is phenomenal. We pulled this with the copper and burnt sienna mix. Just got a nice shine, but it's not overpowering. Let's see here. The rest of them. So what do we have here? And then this one. This was a clean off. Through a stencil, I pulled this paint, the green, the fern, and then we did an overlay. And then we laid the stencil over the blue paint, and then we got this outline after we picked it up. So a couple of more brayer offs. This one, this got 3 layers on it. Beautiful. There's this one too, that we have that beautiful golden acrylic teal blue and the phthalo blue. Very nice. This one turned out great as well. So just the colors are great, outlines are great. We have this that we did, and then the rest are just more brayer offs. And this one cool, like the design came off the stencil or off the brayer as we rolled it out. So I think overall this was a pretty successful printing session. So I've got some fun papers to play with so I can decorate my new art journal. And like I said, look at how great this one is gonna look with this here. That's gonna be awesome. That is gonna look so good. So thank you guys for joining me today. Don't forget to hit the like and subscribe button if you haven't already, and leave me a comment. I will see you on the next video. Thank you so much. Bye.